Hi, I'm Charley Martinez, and we're back with another Meat Market Minute for the pork side of things. Today, Josh Maples from Mississippi State is going to be the one talking about the pork market and what we're seeing. Josh?
Well, thanks, Charlie. Appreciate the chance to be with y'all on Meat Market Minutes again. Today, I'm talking pork. So we're going to look at some of the stuff that's going on in the pork markets and talk a little bit about how the pork cutout value and therefore a lot of product prices for pork have dropped in the last couple of weeks from the record highs. So I want to start out just with the hogs process. This is the number of hogs that were turned into meat for our consumption. You'll see that big drop there is what triggered all the headlines that we saw in the news. And so we've since recovered from that fairly quickly. We're getting back close to where the same levels that we had a year ago. And that recovery continues. Now, we do still have a lot to work through there, but certainly better news in terms of able to get hogs through the system and turned into pork for us to all enjoy. Of course, that translates directly into the amount of pork that is produced. So you'll see that these two charts look very similar, and that's because one leads to the other. So our pork produced here, we've got a little dot on there. You see that at our low point of pork production, we were 34% below where we were a year ago. So we've recovered from that, continue to recover from that. But really that significant drop that we see there was the culprit for the high pork prices that we've been talking about the last few weeks. So I want to jump straight over to the pork cutout value. The pork cutout value is the pork cutout value represents all of the cuts that we get out of a hog. So the idea here is that it takes the pork that is produced and based on the value of the cut, puts it back together to get a value of the whole hog. So the pork cutout value, 37% below 2019, just a couple of weeks ago. So that was whenever, production was still fairly strong, right before we had the big drop. And so we actually saw a pretty big decline in the pork cutout value because we were worried about the demand for the meat. Then the production concerns kicked in, and so we actually ended up with a skyrocketing pork cutout value just a couple of weeks ago, 34% above. So imagine that, guys. We basically shot down 40% and shot back up 35% all in a couple of weeks' time. It's just an incredible shift. Let's dig in on a few of the product prices. So if we look at wholesale ham prices, been on a pretty good roller coaster. Again, following the same sort of trends based on the amount of pork that we could produce, was really influencing the prices for hams. Pork belly prices, this is the one that gets quite a bit of attention because we love our bacon, right? I was looking at this one this morning, and this market has halved, so basically cut in half, and then it doubled, and then it doubled again, and now we've halved again, all in the past couple of weeks, which is just truly, truly incredible. But as you see here, our pork belly prices have dropped back down pretty sharply. So I think we're going to continue to see some volatility, especially in pork belly prices. Pork loin prices peaked again, just like everything else did a few weeks ago, and then have dropped back down, and likely will continue to do so as production continues to pick up. So this is my last one here, wholesale pork spare rib prices. I like to barbecue and I like to cook ribs like I know a lot of you do. These continuing to spike up. We haven't quite seen the turn in these prices yet that we've seen in other pork products. But I think that I at least will still be looking for these to throw on the smoker this summer. But anyways, with that, Charlie, I'll wrap up there. Just want to give you a brief overview of what's happening in the pork meat markets with Meat Market Minutes. Thank you.
Thanks. So question I have, I guess, for you, Josh, is as we get into the summertime and as our production starting to pick back up again, for the people that are, going to the supermarkets and looking around trying to find deals, I'm assuming that there'll be some cheap pork around in the cases that they can buy, or what do you think at the retail side of things? What can they expect?
Yeah, I think you're right, Charlie. I mean, especially as supply continues to get back to where we were. We haven't, quite frankly, had to have any deals the last few weeks because supply has been so tight. Retailers haven't had to push deals to get people to buy product. But as supply gets back to more normal levels, then I think we'll start seeing some of those deals that you're talking about, the featuring at retail for buyers this summer.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Hey, I don't know if this is a question or a comment, but a couple in the, I did a little field trip this weekend. I had to go to run some errands. And so I went to a couple different grocery stores and I saw huge differences in prices depending on the store I was in. I mean, it was pretty clear which store was buying in this spot market with prices skyrocketing and which store had either laid in some supplies ahead of time or is not fully passing on these wholesale prices. I saw, it was almost, one store had pork cuts almost twice as much as that the other store did in terms of price. I was really surprised. The other thing that surprised me is, I'm seeing more raw, uncured, unsliced pork belly in our grocery stores. You guys see that in your stores?
I have, David. You talking about really big packages too?
Oh yeah, like half a belly. You know.
Same.
Boy, that's
Yeah.
pretty interesting. I would have figured. I guess I'm just surprised, even with all of the mess that we're in. We're seeing that thing just out there in the bins, that particular cut. I think that's pretty fascinating change.
I think you're right, Dave. And your point about the wide variance in prices among stores is absolutely true. And I think, if you put yourself in a local grocer spot, what do you do when you see prices like this? Do you really think you can pass them on to your consumers? And a lot of grocery stores have decided to try to do that. So I think that's why they're buying, have been buying the last couple of weeks when prices were really high, and maybe they didn't have a lot set up ahead of time. So they were short on supply and they had to decide, okay, well, if I get it, I'm going to have to charge higher prices. When I think some of them, like you suggested, were in a little bit better spot and had some supplies bought forward and were able to do it at lower prices. But I think this has really put, think about your local grocer, meat buyer. What do you do whenever these prices are facing you? And do you think that your consumers will respond to them?
I agree. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to the viewers for watching this episode of Meat Market Minutes on the pork side of things. We hope you enjoyed it and you'll join us on the other ones. Thank you.